Joining me now is a comedian, self-described libertarian two-pack, Dave Smith. While the biggest issues of the midterms have been things like the economy and protecting our kids, Dave takes it one step further. He can connect our crumbling culture to today's biggest foreign policy issues, like how close we are to a war in Russia. Welcome, Dave. How are you?
Thank you, Glenn. It's good to be with you guys. And yeah, I think there's a very clear connection. This is not my observation. This is the observation of the most brilliant founders of this country, that if we go around the world searching for monsters to destroy, we become the dictatress of the world, but we lose our own soul.
Yes.
And I think that's what a lot of you guys are talking about on the panel today.
Yeah, I think that the global wars that we have fought started out as, if you remember right, I think the war in Afghanistan was first called Operation Crusade or something like that, because it felt righteous, etc. And because we were fighting Muslims, they thought, oh, we should change the name Crusade. But it started out as righteous indignation, but it has turned into something that is really, truly, remarkably evil, that has exposed what we as a country never thought we were doing. And that is really bad things to people all around the world.
Yeah, and isn't it interesting that I think a big split in the Republican Party today, and this goes all the way back to at least World War I, is kind of the difference. There are some Republicans who are criticizing Joe Biden for not being tough enough on Russia. And then there are other more America First Republicans who are criticizing him for even being involved in this to begin with.
Right.
And this goes all the way back through the conservative wing of the Republican Party, was arguing not to get involved in World War I, and then World War II, and then Vietnam. And it goes all the way through. And I think that generally speaking, the hawkish side has won for most of modern American history. And I think since Donald Trump was elected, that's changed a little bit. And there's more energy in the America First side, which is saying, like, what do we really get out of all of this? I would take it a step further and say, if you care about the culture in America, when has it degraded the most? What, during Vietnam? I mean, look at what we're talking about right now. Everything that's happening in American culture. Is it a coincidence that this follows 20 years of terror wars where we don't have one victory to show? All we have, all we really have is the conservative movement, the evangelical movement being completely discredited because they put all of their chips in on the war in Iraq, the war in Afghanistan, which brought us nothing but disaster. And now we're in the middle of a war 5,000 miles away from the East Coast of the United States of America, on Russia's border, with the two countries with the biggest nuclear arsenals in the history of the world, staring each other down. For what? For whether the Donbass region is ruled by Kiev or Moscow? You explain to me how that's America First.
It's not. I had great hope, and if we hold the Senate, I have hope that the Senate and the House will grab the purse strings and stop this over there. I think this is absolutely corrupt. You have to be a moron to think we could send, $60 million or $60 billion over there and expect that there's no corruption. This is riddled with corruption, and it could very well quickly turn into World War III. And I don't know a single American who is saying, oh yeah, we should have boots on the ground there. We should be involved in that. We relate to the people of Ukraine as being decent people that just want to be left alone. But that's not what that story really is. That's just one component of the story. I'm not sure that, because it feels to me like, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, it feels to me like this administration wants a war, wants it with Russia.
Well, it certainly seems like what they want is to prolong the conflict and to bleed Russia dry. It seems like the attitude is that we have not been successful in defeating insurgencies, but we can be successful in supporting one. So we could maybe draw Russia into what we've been drawn into in Afghanistan and Iraq, in Syria, in Libya, in Somalia, in Pakistan, in Yemen.
Dave, do you think that's possible? I mean, when we were in Vietnam, everybody knew Russia was, working against us. We knew that, but they didn't make announcements all the time. This administration has done something I've never seen before, and that is, we just send over this weapon system, this one's coming, they're going to get more of this, and we're even on the ground now training. Countries used to deny those things. They're coming out and saying, no, that's what we're doing, which automatically puts us into a war stance.
Yeah, and Glenn, the biggest difference between all of the proxy wars against the Soviet Union, well, I mean, the big difference is this isn't the Soviet Union anymore.
Yeah.
But the big difference in this conflict is that this is on Russia's border. That makes this a whole different thing. Look, when the Soviet Union put nuclear missiles in Cuba, Jack Kennedy said, "I will nuke the world if you keep these here." And we all agree that he was right. Like, no one thinks that was not a reasonable line to say, we cannot have a knife at our throat. That is unacceptable. And right now, this war, however you feel about it, is on Russia's border. Now, I'm not saying that Russia is justified in invading.
Not at all.
They're certainly not. I don't think we were justified in invading Iraq or Afghanistan, maybe Afghanistan, but certainly not to have a regime change against the Taliban. But you know what, Glenn, as you know, about 90% of the things that are happening across the planet right now are not justified. That's not the question. The question is, what is the risk that we are incurring against our country, and for what benefit? And as you guys have all been talking about this whole night, as we're watching our country fall apart, why are we flirting with a nuclear conflict 5,000 miles across the globe when we can't even figure out our own problems?
Let's
spread liberty through America before we spread it through Eastern Europe.
So can I be really cynical here? I've talked about for 20 years that these times were coming, and it looks very similar to what I laid out long ago. And the last thing on a chalkboard that I wrote about these times coming was, you're going to have an implosion of trust where no one will believe anything in the system at all. We won't know what is true and what is not, and we'll start looking at each other. Then you will start to have the banking go down, you'll have the economy go down, and you have all of these things. But what it takes to finally make that last turn and get America to forget what America was is a world war. And to me, it just seems a little too convenient that we're here, and the thing that they could grab all of the controls of speech, of the media, of anybody that is speaking out, they can grab those controls because we would be at war. Is that too cynical?
It certainly benefits a lot of powerful people to have an external enemy. And this has always been the truth for authoritarian regimes, right? This is how they benefit. And I got to say, I'll point this out, and some of your audience might disagree with me on this one, but Joe Biden's just as crazy for saying that we would militarily defend Taiwan if China invaded. Look, we're not in a position to defend Taiwan militarily. We're not in a position to defend Ukraine militarily. What we need to be is what we were always supposed to be, which is a city on a hill. We're supposed to set an example for the rest of the world by being a free society. And we don't go around the world enforcing freedom on other countries who maybe want it and maybe don't. And every time we try to do that, we lose our own soul.
I agree.
And this is what America is suffering through right now. And you're absolutely right, Glenn, that this is the perfect distraction for powerful people. And that what we need to focus on right now is holding our own society to account, our own leaders to account, to work on our freedom here. And then the best we can hope for is that other people will look at us and go, well, look how successful they're being. Look, we spread freedom throughout the world more effectively by being more prosperous than the rest of the world than we ever did through the point of a gun.
And it's not even prosperous. It is the way we ran our society. The crossing of the Delaware with George Washington, that painting was painted by a German for Germans right after the Communist Manifesto came out in the 1850s. That's not an American painting. The Statue of Liberty was built for French to be able to teach the ideas of America to their own people. Those were both for their own people. Once we started saying, oh no, we're going to bring this to you, we lost all credibility.
Yeah, and Glenn, who's the first one who said we're going to bring all of this to you? It was the worst president in American history, Woodrow Wilson, who gave us the income tax and the IRS, the original progressive era leader who said we're going to make the world safe for democracy. And when he said that, what was there? All throughout Europe, there were monarchs. And so he said, we're going to make the world safe for democracy. And that sounds better than monarchs. Yeah. And you know what followed Woodrow Wilson's World War I was the rise of Adolf Hitler, Lenin, and then Stalin. A whole lot worse than those monarchs that we had. We're in no position to remake the world. It's like, Glenn, it's like me or you trying to remake someone else's marriage before we make our own marriage good.
I know. And your marriage is on fire while you're doing it. Nobody's going to listen to you because your own marriage is on fire. Dave, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thanks for your input.
Thank you, and it warms my soul to see you all talking about national divorce. Michael Malice, you're leading the conversation.
Thank you very much, Dave. I appreciate it. I think that this is a good example of the blaze. You're not hearing this conversation anywhere on national television tonight.